through the forum. I'll do the prayer, then the pledge of allegiance will be led by Commissioner Meredith. Please stand. Oh, most gracious and heavenly Father, thank you so much for all the blessings, Father God, that you give us. Father God, as we look over to Ukraine and see the things that go on, Father God, we just to know that coming from this legislative body, the decisions that's being made over there, Father God, just be with those people, Father. Give them protection. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next is the approval of agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to add Election Administrator Mark Stevens is to discuss election security under 5A, and then 5B, Captain Val to discuss cemeteries, District 4.
Okay. Mayor.
I'd like to add a resolution that would support a partnership or between the state of Tennessee and our health department for continuing education, and I'll pass that around. It just came through on Thursday afternoon, and this just helps us get started so that they can get the appropriate paperwork together. And then also, I know last month we dealt with, at the regular meeting, the broadband, and we did, you all passed a motion authorizing any provider. Comcast has put together a grant application. I know Commissioner Wandell's asked to see the map. They did send that, but you really can't read it, so I asked for the list of the streets. I have that, but I would like to add just a support letter to the agenda so that at least I have this committee if we do support that grant application.
And I'll let it be added under your report.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have a motion
Motion to add, yes.
and a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other amendments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is appearance of citizens. Do we have any citizens here who'd like to address this group, this committee, this for anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know, is this on the agenda?
No, I don't see it on the agenda.
My name is Leo York. I live out in the first district. I always have to think about that because all the research I do says that I live in the fourth district, but that changed. I am asking the county for permission and maybe some financial assistance with placing a historical marker at the county poor farm. I've done quite a bit of research on the county poor farm and learned quite a bit about the poor farm. And it was established in 1895. It was closed in 1863. And there's a cemetery out there as well. And I found the names of about 60 of the people that are buried out there by going back through all of the county court meeting minutes and through death certificates. And now I'm filling out an application for the historical marker to be placed. And I also need a letter from the county saying that it's okay to put the marker out there on your properties.
I'll be glad to do that for him. If you want to just make a motion that gives me or the mayor the opportunity to write a letter basically consenting to this historical marker. There's no funds there at all. Is there on the county's part?
Well, I don't know if the state will pay for this. Sometimes they pay for some of them, and sometimes they ask the county to pay for them. And the amount that the marker would cost would be $1,550. If the state chooses not to pay for it. They pay for some they don't. And I don't know what their reasoning is.
Mayor, is it okay if I write this consent letter for you? If you don't mind, give me a motion, give me the authority to write the consent letter for Leo. Thank you.
I make a motion to allow the mayor and law director to draft a consent letter for the historical marker to be placed at the Port Farm.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you, Mr. York.
Thank you, Leo.
Next is the mayor.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners. The first item on the agenda is requesting motion to approve Resolution 2203-915. This authorizes Anderson County Senior Center to establish fees for activities and optional senior center programs. So these are, we cannot charge any fees for any services provided through Office on Aging, like any of those assistants, but this is for things like arts and crafts where there are material costs. Then they could pay a fee for the cost of doing a painting class or a pottery class, something along that line, or a field trip. This authorizes that. A&J does have this for review.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner McCamey. Commissioner Scott?
Yeah, thank you. Mayor, so what kind of fees are they wanting to charge?
It would just be like a wash fee. So for instance, if it costs $4 to buy the canvas and $2 for the paint, then they would set the fee for that class. These are the cost of materials. And then it would go directly into a revenue code that actually went through budget for approval. So if we end up approving this at full commission, that will be stood up. That actually has a cost center for program fees. So they would purchase those materials out of that code, and then the fees that come in would just replenish it.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking is, over the years, I've brought this up to commission, and I've been chastised for, well, how dare you, by the people from the senior center on all over, commissioners and so forth. And I think it's great. I think it's wonderful that they're going to charge, for surcharges, like you said, for travel expenses and for materials. However, are they going to have set rates? In other words, is it going to be just a flat rate of $5 for these classes because, the cost may be up to $5, or $20 for a field trip to cover a bagged lunch and fuel costs, or $50 because there's an overnight stay? Are they looking at making a program, in other words, where there's set costs that people know of ahead of time?
Well, they do, generally on all the arts and crafts program, they're advertised in advance. So they put those on, they have a monthly calendar, and then they'll have a painting class, and they have sign-up sheets. And so the fees are not really a fee per se, it's a material cost.
Sure.
And that's why under the cost center, it'll say program fees. So if there is a trip and it costs $15 to go see a particular symphony or something, then it would
Right.
just be to recoup.
Cool. All right, thank you very much.
I think you need a second.
I do. Okay.
Oh,
We got a second by Commissioner Yeager. Commissioner Wandale?
Thank you. I'll certainly support this, Mayor. I guess one of my questions is, and it probably doesn't relate into this resolution, but is the building able to be rented out to others, or?
No, and in fact, last month, that statement was made, and everyone looked at me, and we have not rented the facility, so there have been a couple of things where there's been an intergovernmental use only. We had someone who wanted to rent the facility, and Commission has not, that was in the MOU, that might be something we consider going forward, but we have not established any kind of rules or procedures or anything like that. The only thing that was authorized by this body was the Sea Cadets. And we did terminate that, and I did meet with Dr. Parrott last week, and he's working on making one of the schools. He's going to get with them and make, that was a motion that came out of this body.
Oh, great.
So we're working on that.
I just would like to tell you, and I know Robert's heavily involved with Senior Center, that if there's anything that, from my perspective, we can do, I would like to encourage that ability for the seniors to generate more revenue to offset costs like these for the seniors. So if there's a opportunity in the near future to look at renting out the facility to generate extra funds, I'd support that. But I know that's something different than this request, and I'll support this.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We have a motion by Commissioner McCamey, seconded by Commissioner Yeager. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
And the next is a request for a motion to approve Resolution 2203-916. This authorizes the county mayor to make application to ETHRA and the Area Agency on Aging and Disability to deliver senior center services and Title III-D services under the Elder American Acts. So this is our grant application, and then we're just doing an official resolution saying that I have the authority to submit that grant application.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Meredith, seconded by Commissioner Scott. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Then the next one that you added under new business is, and I distributed those, Resolution 2203-917. The state of Tennessee is making some funding available to their state employees in the Department of Health to allow employees that are eligible to get educational leave and tuition assistance. And so they can get associate's degree, bachelor's, master, doctoral degree, and certificate programs. They are making some of this funding available for the county health departments as well, for county health department employees. And what this resolution does is supports the partnership and then allows me to submit this to them to get this going. There are a few things that the county health department will have to do. They'll have to develop a policy. The state of Tennessee actually has one that they said we can mirror for that educational assistance policy. The funding runs out, they're expecting it to run out in June 2023. But this is a great opportunity for employees of the health department if they want to further their education, and I think it's a good program. But it will come back if we, if we're eligible and we submit this, it will come back to you in the form of a contract for approval at next month's meeting. The most important part, as you're looking at it, it is a reimbursement grant. So what we do not pay the employees. If they go to an educational institution and they go get another degree or some additional training, we pay that school, and then we submit the invoices to the state of Tennessee, and they reimburse Anderson County. It's a reimbursement grant. So
We
no
have a
cost to
motion
us.
by Commissioner Anderson. We need a second.
Awesome.
Seconded by Commissioner Wandale. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
And then the last item you added, and thank you for adding, was the Comcast letter of support. So there is a little bit to be worked out, and I don't know, you might have to give me some leeway on this. Comcast has not gotten all the information. They're kind of last minute on getting us the information. And I finally got the list of roads. They have Hines Creek Road, Hill Road, Mount Olive Road, Lone Mountain Road, Mill Creek, Sequoia Marina area, Lovely Bluff, Beech Grove Lane, Cambria Hollow Lane. But then they also have, in what they're applying for, some of the same area that we applied for under the Highland Communications Grant, which was Duncan Flats Lane and around Brown Cemetery. So I don't know what that will do. I have written Comcast back. I don't know what that does to our other grant application, which covers a larger area up in Bryceville. And so I would like a letter of support or authorization to do that. And I think it's implied with our discussion last month and your approval of funding. However, I'm kind of perplexed at this last minute crossover, and I don't know what your thoughts are, if you want to give me some leeway to work with them on that, if they can maybe, I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that other application as well that's covering a larger area of the Bryceville community, the district, up on Seaber Hollow and Val Mountain and all of that. So
The way
I don't know what your
understand
thoughts are on that.
it, when I talked to Highland myself, is if Comcast is there or if they're offering it, they will not be able to. And it would knock
Right.
out all of everything that they wanted to do if there's just one area that Comcast picks up. So it would negate everything they was trying to do. So I would think, I'm glad that you're picking that up to do that.
Yeah. Well, would you be okay with me negotiating with them? I mean, this is kind of 11th hour stuff, and I don't like to do that. I prefer you all to sign off on it, but at this 11th hour,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we allow the mayor to negotiate.
Okay, got a motion, seconded by Commissioner Meredith. Any discussion? Commissioner Wandell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the Tennessee County Commissioners Association meeting, and I did not make it to the presentation, but I found a business card on the table, and it kind of intrigued me, Director of Broadband for the state of Tennessee, and I called the young lady, and I got that information that came from the state of Tennessee, Tennessee County Commissioners Association, and we put it out to all the commissioners and mayor and Jay. I did have that map on there, and we've got quite a chunk in our area. I have several residents that are having issues not being able to get cable, and it looked like to me on that map there's a pretty well populated area in the southern border of Knox County and Anderson County that's in District 1 that needs attention. So in talking to the young lady, I learned a lot, and it's you can put more than one. You can do, I told her we were looking at Highlands. I hadn't spoke to anybody at Highlands, and I told her we had something from Comcast. They do need a letter of community support, which I think we've already done per se. Is that right, or we just allocated the funds?
Last month, we did one specific for Highland Communication, and we didn't have anything final from Comcast yet. So I did get in the motion, or in the minutes, your all's approval of the Highland Communication support. And then the second motion was a motion for any provider who was going to apply under this Tennessee ECD grant, the Emergency Broadband Grant, to be eligible for that $250,000, so that they would have that commitment. Because I knew you and Mr. Yeager were working on that, and so we made that language inclusive so that that support is there.
According to, her name's Taylor, and I forget her last name, but she said we can point out the locations needing broadband and do a locality match. We can provide that to her and tell her exactly the areas we want to see done in our county. And I'm like you and the rest, I don't want to see anybody knocked out that needs it up in Bryceville or Duncan Flats or wherever. I mean, but there's also other locations that need
Right.
it, and that just can't get it for whatever reason. So according to Taylor, there's a 70-30 match. 70% is funded by the state. 30% is supposed to be funded by the client or the provider, let's call it Comcast or Highland. So any match we give is just really helping that provider not having to put out any cash. So in the example of Comcast, $3 million, if we give them hypothetically $300,000, they would have virtually no cost in the venture. And so that's something for us to keep in mind. I didn't realize it was a 70-30 match in that emergency broadband funding, ARP funding. They get points with the match, so when they take the letter from us, they're able to get points based on how much money us pointing out the areas that need it, and if those areas meet the map. They bumped the deadline, so they do need them in by tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. When I say they, that's again the providers. For us, I guess it would be Comcast and Highland. So I think we really need to put some thought into what is it, and Mayor and Jay and whatever commissioners know what areas they need covered. For me, in District 1, I would like to see all of that blue area that could possibly be covered. And I don't care if it's Highland or Comcast, doesn't relevant to me as long as we get some coverage. So I know the motion on the floor is to give the mayor authority to proceed. Is that basically? I'll support that. I just want to make sure that I know the areas in District 1 that are going to be covered. I get calls on it all the time. I mean, one fellow, he passed away waiting on it, and young fella too. And, he became so frustrated that he couldn't get it across the street to his house.
Yeah.
And he said, "Tracy, it's right there." I said, "Yeah, I know, man, I know." And, and I just want to see it. So whatever I can do, Mayor, I'm going to support this. If I can have an understanding of what areas in Claxton are going to be covered, and on out to Mountain View, if there's any out there that need to be done too, I don't know.
I did like, Highland, when they first proposed this, they explained what their build was formerly and then how that opened up other areas for them. And so on the front end, they told us, here are the areas we're looking at, and they sent engineers out, and we knew what they were looking at. I think Commissioner Anderson put on Facebook, the engineers' trucks that were in the neighborhood. With Comcast, I didn't really have the knowledge. I don't know if you had the knowledge, but I don't think we really got that communication as far as what are they exactly looking at, or we could have been of a little more help. So, and they probably got their hands full. Everybody's trying to get grant applications in for the whole state of Tennessee. I'm not, dogging them on this, but if there is a way, if you're saying their part of this is due tomorrow, maybe we do have more time then for us to agree to what areas are covered.
Right.
Is that what your understanding is?
That was my understanding. Obviously for the providers, they want to get it in by tomorrow so they can be first at the table, I guess. But from my takeaway, and it was Taylor Beatty, I got her contact, I'll send it to you, very, very knowledgeable about everything that's going on. I almost get the impression that from her that we should be taking an approach of, okay, here's what we want. We want service in, North Anderson County here, and we want it in South Anderson County here, and this is what we want, and we're willing to put up, hypothetically, the $250,000. So now you, provider, tell us. I guess in Comcast, they just jumped ahead and said, hey, we'll do these things for $3 million, and we'll get, 470 houses or something like this, I think was part of the bid. But again, I don't know where that was going to go. You've provided some addresses.
Yeah, they didn't give me a number of houses on theirs.
I think we need to be careful, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I think we need to, I'm confident Mayor can handle it. It's just, I don't want to pigeon-toe us into something. We have the authority right now to kind of dictate where we want to see broadband go in our county. And it's up to us to say, this is where we want to see it to go. We all want to see our constituents that don't have internet access have it. And, I think we've already demonstrated at the last meeting, we're willing to put in that 30% even, but we need to know where it's gonna go. I just don't wanna willy-nilly throw out the 30,000, 30%, whatever, 300,000, and then not have a clear understanding of who's gonna get taken care of.
We need broadband everywhere we got water, and that's 98% of the county.
Well, that map was pretty good, and I think the mayor says did you get a clearer picture of the map, or?
No, I even blew it up, and
it's hard to tell.
it is, Rick, I'll give you $5 if you can read.
He can read it, $5.
I mean, I know what parts of the county it is, but that it doesn't tell you anything.
Do we still have, our cable committee? No?
No, we've got just for TV.
Channel
Oh,
95.
yeah, that's right.
I will get on this. I think their deadline is tomorrow. I'll get on this first thing in the morning and just do a big group email on the location. And if it's something where we can, if they just have to have, I mean, I can send what motions we have, but see if we can't work a little more on the areas that are covered.
I think what Commissioner Wandell's saying is that they could actually be 2 or more providers instead of just 1. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, they did not indicate that, she was happy to hear that we had 2 providers, and again, I told her, look, I'm just telling you what I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't know who is gonna be I know Comcast had put something to us for $3 million, and then I know Highland has been pretty aggressive, but I haven't talked to anybody at Highland, and she said, well, that's all I need to know. I just need to
Right.
know who the entities are, but I do believe you can talk to her, and maybe an idea might be that have the operations chairman or our chairman participate, and I mean, I just want to see, because like Burley Nelson Lane, there's no service.
Yeah.
And no internet for the kids to do schoolwork, no internet for them to do work from home. So that's just one location, and they have struggled with that for forever. And Comcast will come back and say, it's $1,000, $3,000, and a lot of this discussion started happening because I knew there was funds available, for the providers, and I just didn't understand why they weren't
Right.
tapping into that, saying, okay, we'll take care of you. So now they're tapping into that, get 70%, and then they're looking for us to, it does help them to get those funds by us as a county saying we're gonna earmark up to certain funds.
Right. And I agree with you. I think we, as many applications as possible is great, but I don't want, and I'm not saying this is happening, which once you utter the words, then everyone's going to say, the mayor said. I just don't want it to be a chess match between providers where they're both going to cover the same road in order to try to bump each other out, because
Makes sense.
all those other roads on there are needed too, under the Comcast resolution as well as the Highland resolution. So I just want to make sure, surely there's another place in the county you can cover, to your point, in District 1, that can make up for that crossover area.
Okay.
So,
I think the mayor can handle it. I mean, I don't know what else needs to happen. The only thing I'm gonna ask is I just wanna know what roads specifically will be looked at, whether it's Highland or Comcast and District 1,
Well, the good part is that Governor Lee, this is one of his initiatives to bring broadband to all areas of Tennessee. So it's supposed to be his pet project for his term.
And the people are very appreciative of the mayor and everyone getting involved, and they're excited to know that there might be an opportunity to get some internet service when they just haven't been able to get it.
Mr. Chairman, I just don't want, like the mayor said, one company to bump another company out. And that could very well be what's happening. I know Comcast is a for-profit company. Highland is a non-profit company. And I just feel like that there's a larger area that, and especially in my district and yours, that Highland can cover. But if Highland is of the opinion that if we're gonna deal with Comcast, they're out of it, then, I don't know where we go from there.
Yeah, it's like Dutch Valley. I had spoken to Highland about about the Dutch Valley area, and in some of the areas that have gaps there, and they're like, well, Comcast does cover that area, so we can't really go in. If they're able to provide service there, then we're not really going to be at the front of the line for eligibility under a grant scenario because Comcast is able to. So they were looking at areas where they could connect with their existing network, and there's no other opportunity there.
I thought I heard that as long as Highland doesn't take 10% of the rural service, is that something you said last meeting or something, I thought? As long as they didn't went over, I thought it was as long as they didn't go over 10% of the existing providers.
I think it was like if the area they're applying for has no more than 10% already of coverage already, or something like that.
Okay.
I think.
That's probably
And
right.
they almost, the way they were describing it to me was like they could have put in as many applications as they wanted. It was like a pocket area, so if Comcast went down like a main road but didn't get the side roads, they could apply for just the side road. They could kind of map it out really carefully to avoid Comcast wherever they could.
Well, I'm open to whoever can provide it, and I'm willing to take the 70% from the state to get it funded and pitch in whatever we need to do to get it. I'm with Commissioner McCamey and the rest. I have no preferences. I just want to see it get done, and I think if we just, as a body, say to the mayor, okay, tomorrow, make your calls, do your emails, and I mean, the providers should get it in by tomorrow, but it's been extended.
Okay.
I'll send you Taylor's information. You can talk to
Okay.
her. She would love to talk to you. I know you two will hit it off. She's very knowledgeable about it. She said she'd be happy to talk to anybody. I'll send the contact out to all of us.
Commissioner Shaw?
And that's simply what I was gonna stress. I did speak to her for a brief bit. But her name, she made it a point to tell everyone, my name's not Taylor like you think it is. Her father had some kind of a whim. It's spelled Taylre, but it's pronounced Taylor.
That's great.
And she did stress that she'll bend over backwards and help anybody out, that she's really wanting to get as much broadband out there as possible without crossing over and knocking someone else out. She's available, very much available, very, very helpful, and you hit all the high points.
Thank
You did very well.
Thank
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
you. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, we have Mark Stevens.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I was asked by Commissioner Anderson to talk to you a little bit about a letter that had been circulated by a group in Oak Ridge called the Election Integrity and Fraud Prevention Committee. And went and actually addressed those folks last Thursday, sat down with them and talked to them, and they shared their concerns and their issues, and I think we had an understanding. I think a lot of people learned a lot, and I think they have a better understanding now why we do what we do, and I think some of their concerns were definitely answered. So, Commissioner Anderson, did you want to add more to that, or?
Well, yeah, I was just curious. It's from what I understood from people that had contacted me and the committee, that it was like a subcommittee of the local Republican Party, but they, and I think I can pull up the email, but they had indicated that they felt like the results from even in Anderson County were skewed in 2020. Did you address any of that? I mean, I guess I just wanted to give you the chance to kind of set the record straight. Or
That didn't come up in discussions, but I'll kind of give you a little backstory on how that got started and what's kind of been fueling this. It actually started in Williamson County back in 2020 after the November election. There was a group of individuals that were very concerned about their voting system. They have Dominion voting systems. And basically they were alleging some, Williamson County had a very bad night on election night November 2020. They didn't get their results in until the late hours of actually on the morning, the following morning. There were some issues with some tabulators and some things like that they didn't get all their totals to the state until the following morning. They also had issues in October of 2021 regarding the same situations. So there's a group that actually started in Williamson County that basically their agenda was to get a new voting system. And basically they started these splinter groups throughout the state that have tried to suggest that there's some issues with our election process. And ultimately they've lobbied basically the state office, the state legislature, basically anybody that'll listen to them, and ultimately it worked. This current in March, they actually were given a new voting system by the state. So they actually will now be not using the system that they bought in 2020, but they'll be getting a new system again for this current year, for this next election.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming. I think when I hear it, just sounded like a serious accusation. I know at the county level, not as worried about presidential or national politics, but we have a lot of tied races or really, really close races in the county. So if there's doubts, it kind of undermines all of our local offices, I feel like. So appreciate you. That's all I had.
Let me ask a question.
Commissioner Wande?
Thank you. So Mark, I mean, I don't think there's any issues in Anderson County. I mean, I think you do a good job. I think the Election Commission does a good job. I mean, did you have any issues?
Said basically all this stems from Williamson County and other counties. As far as they're incorporating that into Anderson County, those numbers the facts just don't lie there. They can, it's hard to compare. Every election is different.
Right.
2016 election was different than 2020 election, which will be different than the 2024 election. So for them to try and compare the two, there's really no comparison. You had different components. You had a pandemic in the middle of the 2020 election. You had a lot of third-party candidates in 2016 where you didn't have them in 2020. So sometimes the numbers get skewed. But if you look along the lines, actually we had more people actually vote in 2020 than we did in 2016 in the presidential election. If you look at the totals and you take some of the things out, the numbers basically are the same. They are exactly the same.
So a few months ago, you had approached us about getting funding for new machines. If we had new machines, would that help prevent any potential problems going forward? I mean, is the new system produce paper ballot or paper? I'm not clear on that.
Okay, yes, to answer your question, the new voting system is more secure.
Okay.
It's just ultimately you look at a computer versus, we have a 2006 voting system. You look at a computer in 2006 versus a computer in 2022, obviously the standards and the safeguards are better now than what they were in 2006. So yes, the system is safer. With regard to paper, I'm not for a completely paper system. I think there's issues and concerns with that. We're going to look at something like more of a hybrid system where you actually mark the ballot itself,
Okay.
and then you'll just put it in a scanner and it'll read it. So
Okay.
it'll be a combination of between what we have now and an all paper system.
When are you looking at getting those units?
I hope to get those as soon as we can get it with supply chains and things like that. I hope to get a bid or the bids out to purchasing this month, and hopefully we'll get something by, if we get everything in place, as soon as we could get it would be August of this year.
Probably wouldn't be able to use it for this election.
No, not for May. No, that's not possible.
And I think I saw in some of the notes at our ARP funding workshop about the possibility of setting some funds aside. It's just one of many things, right? I mean, that we could probably use for those funds for those new machines. So that would be good. It wouldn't be any of the taxpayers' money really, and it'd be, well, you think that would be a good
I think it
move?
would be a good investment in the future, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. So really, nothing wrong in Anderson County. This was all derived from Williamson.
Started in Williamson County. It did. And so it's kind of like I said, there's splinter groups throughout the state now that allege certain things that happened in 2020.
But you're confident on the results in Anderson County, and there wasn't, in your mind, from what you saw, any issues with
I
the presidential election or whatever?
I think we had a very good day in November 2020. Credit to our poll workers, our poll officials, and we had our results into the state 9:20 that night. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else?
Just for a point of reference, Williamson County is south of Davidson County and west of Rutherford in Middle Tennessee. It's not like it's connecting or touching us at all,
no,
so.
it's not.
Well, Mr. Chairman, while Mark's here, I just want to ask him, you're going to get the bids out, when will you approach us about, or how will that, Mayor, how will that work? I mean, will we bring his request to finance or budget and then it go to ARP, or how will that work?
When he opens, or when they open the bid and get the amounts, I would assume the election commission and Mr. Stevens would have their choice of a vendor, and then they would come to budget committee for the funding. At that point, at budget committee, they could make the recommendation to use the ARPA funds.
Okay, and then it would come to full commission for final approval?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Commissioner McCamey?
Mark, is part of the funding, the state, are they gonna fund?
They will
portion
actually
of it?
match 50%.
50,
So
50,
yes.
Okay.
So
Oh, that's cool.
we'll get approximately 310,000 from the state. Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark, have we got our stamp back on our redistricting from the state that says everything's okay?
I actually got something back today that
'Cause
I'll be glad to
I've
send
asked
you all.
John Reagan last week to send something because, you know, we haven't got anything yet.
The comptroller, I think, proved that, I believe, it might have been last week, last part of last week or first part of this week.
Okay,
And we do have the PDFs of the new districts, yes.
great, so that's good for all of us.
Yeah.
So we'll
One thing I
get
will
that.
tell you is we did create a new voting precinct up in the Brushy Valley area for a lot of those voters that would have had to drive all the way to the Claxton
That's good.
School. So I think that'll be a much needed location for those folks.
I agree with that, that's
So
great.
is that District 1?
Yeah.
Where's that gonna be?
It's at the Porch Manor. I don't know if you know where that's at. It's up off of Brushy Valley Road where Bluebird is, Bluebird Lane, which is right there where the fire tower is.
Oh, okay, out that way, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that'll help, because that's where
Oh, yeah,
most of your
no,
complaints
that's-
were.
yeah, they'll be-
Yeah,
Yeah, they'll love that, yeah.
yeah,
I think it's great.
good news.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Captain Val?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to come speak to y'all tonight. A few months ago, it was brought before this committee, the possibility of a resolution about upkeep of abandoned cemeteries by the county jail's inmate work crew. I apologize, I had to leave that night. My boys had a basketball game that I was trying to get to, so I had to get an update on that later on. I know our law director's also been researching it as well. That is a program that the county jail has done without a resolution for quite a while now, but we've been kind of limited in what we could do, especially with the inmate population and COVID and staffing and manpower or whatever. But I spoke to the sheriff about it. The sheriff is in favor of this. He thinks it's a good idea. If you all could revisit that, maybe add it to next month's agenda, maybe give the law director time to get whatever answers that were asked. I know there's some laws that allow certain areas for us to go into, especially if they don't have a caretaker. We've always tried to work with cemeteries and churches in our area that if they have someone who can maintain it after we help get it under control, we always try to do that. But I find it more and more prevalent that we have cemeteries that have just totally been abandoned in our county. Kind of a shame, but I understand when I was growing up, it was always a big deal. My family went every year to the Laurel Grove Decoration Day and the Frost Bottom Homecoming. I didn't have a choice. My parents took me to those. And as generations are growing, I just see, unfortunately, that's not becoming a priority anymore, and we would certainly like to try to help all we can. So I guess my request here tonight, Mr. Chairman, is if y'all could add that to next month's agenda, and maybe we can get the answers needed on that, and hopefully we can get that resolution passed.
Okay.
We'd appreciate it.
All right. Jay is agreeing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can you get it by Monday?
Certainly try.
I'd like to go ahead and, I think most of the commissioners, when we talked about it before, were in favor of it. We just weren't sure about the legality. But if Jay can research it and find out about the legality, I'd like to have it go ahead
I've already given
to the full commission.
report on this issue, but I'll be glad, you want it in the form of a resolution.
Yes, sir, if possible, I believe that would be the way that it was intended.
That's the way I approached it
Yes, sir.
originally.
That's correct. And I know Jay's been busy, I was just giving him a little bit more time to come up with it, but if he could get it done by Monday, that'd be great as well.
Okay.
Well, I put that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we go ahead and ask the county law director to have it ready for us at the county commission meeting Monday.
All right.
Second.
We got a motion, we got a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous. Thank you,
Mr.
Captain
Chairman.
Bow.
I know Ms. York also has been active in the one down in Claxton.
Yeah, a few of them down there. There was a cemetery commission or
Come on up,
committee in-
come on up, Mr. York, if you don't care, so everybody can hear you.
Union County has a cemetery commission, and they've been able to get funding from the state to help with their cemetery committee. They have several people that are on that committee, and it's been active for years. You can go to almost any cemetery in Union County, and God knows I've been to a lot of them looking for my own family because that's where my mother's side of the family's from. Those cemeteries are pristine, and the commission is able to use some of the funds that they get. Some of it's donors also give them money, but the state has been able to give them money as well. And they have signs for every one of their cemeteries. They're all documented. Most of them are fenced in. And they encourage the property owner that is near those small family cemeteries that have been abandoned to care for the cemeteries, and they'll help them out as well. But I've looked at getting something like that going here in Anderson County, but it takes a lot of active people to do it, You can get one person to do it, and then like me, I end up out there in Claxton trying to be a committee of one, trying to keep up Black Cemetery, People's Cemetery, and a few of the others out there, and you can't do it. I'm getting older, and I just can't do it. I can't even get my weed eater started, so, I'm over that. But that's something that you guys might want to look at, or the county might want to look at, is to invite some of the people from that Union County Cemetery Committee to come and see exactly what it is they need to get that started. But if there's people, available, because they've got all their cemeteries documented, they know exactly who's buried where, they've got books on it, they've got people that just watch out for the cemeteries, and like I say, they're well maintained. They do the same thing in Scott County. But when I look at the cemeteries here in Anderson County, it's like, they're sad. They are sad. Black Cemetery, when I started cleaning that one up back in 2012, I had to crawl on my hands and knees to get back there to the cemetery because it was so grown up with briars and hedge and stuff. I just couldn't get back there to it. It took 6 months for me to be able to chop a path all the way back to that cemetery. But a lot of them are here in Anderson County. They're really abandoned, and that's sad. I mean, that don't say a lot for a community. If you have no respect for the dead, then what do you respect? So, but anyway, like I say, if you want to invite them over, I can contact some of the people that are there with that commission or that committee and have them come talk to somebody here about getting a similar program started here.
Jay can probably find out something on that.
Yeah, Leo's going to be by my office.
Yeah.
We'll talk more.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Jordan.
Leo.
Very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did we get a vote on that? We didn't. We had a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. House Bill 2246, this is actually brought to my attention by Commissioner Denenberg. And I don't know if everyone's got the handout. But what it was doing is by deleting all language after the enacting clause and substituting. But what it actually did on March 2nd, the Energy Infrastructure Bill was completely rewritten to strip local communities of decision-making authority over the impacts of energy projects, including massive propane and petroleum storage facilities, as well as oil and gas pipelines. This amended bill aims to preempt the ability of local governments to have a say in decisions affecting their communities. So that's what she wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of it. And I understand that the House Commerce Committee has delayed this because they didn't have the support. So this has been delayed till 3/22/2022. Then they had a special stakeholder meeting scheduled for Monday, March 14th, which was today at 10 o'clock Central Time. And I haven't heard anything back on that. But I'll find out. But this is just a matter of awareness that I don't think we want to lose, and Jay may be able to add something to this, but I don't think we want to lose any control that we may have over this.
I don't know how many emails I got asking us to oppose it, but it was several of them, asking that we oppose.
I'd say 25 plus. Plus phone calls and the rest of it, yeah. I've been bombarded with them, so
Do you want me to try to get a resolution opposing this bill?
that would be great.
We got a motion by Commissioner Scott, seconded by Commissioner
I'll second.
McCamey.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Mayor?
Do you have, do you have any more information about it? Because what I'm reading here, it says, the Department of Economic and Community Development shall conduct a study of the current infrastructure of utilities in the state, including pipelines or transmission lines used to produce or distribute a source of energy, such as gas or oil, to determine what improvements to the infrastructure are needed to attract development and investment. On or before January 1st, 2023, the department shall report its findings to the General Assembly along with a list of recommended infrastructure projects. So I guess I'm failing to see, and I know that a lot of times if they open up a particular area of law, like a caption, maybe somebody has a belief that something is going to happen or offer an amendment, but this bill itself, I think we need to find out a little more,
Right.
because I don't want to, I'm not opposed to studying our infrastructure and finding out what we need and what we
Right.
need to do
I
better.
think Senator Yeager is the one that's carrying this, and, you know, he's usually on point.
I mean, and he was a county attorney, then a county mayor, and now a senator, so he's usually, I mean, I'm sure there are times he's not, but he's usually very much an advocate for local government, so I'll reach out and try to find out what that is, because the plain language doesn't say that, so maybe
Right.
there's some,
I've got a copy
Something-
of the original bill and the amended bill. Do you
Okay.
have that?
Is the issue.
the amendment is the issue? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can have this if you want it, Mayor.
Oh, okay.
And Mr. Chairman, I would prefer that Jay lead the project on this, simply because like you were saying, you know, you've got all these modifications, and according to some of these emails, they're wanting to strip the community of local control, and that it's got broad implications to it. So I'd prefer that he look at the legal side of the matter. We've just gotten, like Commissioner McCamey said, we've gotten so many emails opposing this that I would prefer that Jay do the work on this ahead of time before the next meeting, so that should we have a room full of people wanting to get up individually and speak and say they oppose to it, and/or that many more emails, the legal side of things have already been checked out.
I'll research it for you.
But that's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking that you take the head of it.
Okay.
I just don't want to see it, any process of the research get stalled. I know the mayor's you're gonna be busy tomorrow when it comes to the broadband, but, I would prefer to stay a step ahead.
I agree. I
Thank you.
agree. And like the mayor was saying, it's just uncharacteristic for Senator Yeager to,
But we've seen crazier things happen.
yeah. Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Waste Management, Anderson County Landfill, current status of agreement, details pertaining to agreement. Commissioner Wandale.
Yeah, I was just curious if, seems like it's been about 5 years, I don't know. Do we have any updates on the latest contract with waste management for the landfill in Anderson County?
No, I actually pulled that last year because I kind of felt the same way. The host agreement actually expires July 1, 2023. And so I did, last February, reach out to some folks to see, in addition to Jay, like, are there any consultants who might be able to help advise the Solid Waste Advisory Board? And I do have a couple of names that are good at the waste numbers and the number crunching and all of that. And so I already made Jeff Trabalka aware of that last year. So we've got a little while. I did tell Jeff that you had put that on the agenda, and he said he will apprise. They've got a solid waste board meeting at the end of March, and he'll apprise them of maybe it's time to start looking at a timetable for those discussions.
Thank you, Mayor. How much life is left there?
Oh, well, I need to check in with them, and the Solid Waste Board would be better equipped to answer this. But I recall going and doing an on-site tour before COVID, and the capacity there was considerable. So, in fact, years had been taken off of the lifespan, had been added to the lifespan where they had projections, and then those projections were, we've grown, we never hit that. But now with COVID, I'm sure they're probably back to their original projections, so I need to get that information or get it from Solid Waste.
Yeah.
Last we heard is about 15 more years.
What I'd like to see, and again, solid waste makes the decision, I guess, but this body will get to vote on that, right?
Yes.
And I'd like to see that contract come to commission operations or wherever to get that vote. And then the other thing I'd like to kind of study on is when they do move out and it's full, what is their responsibility in our contract to maintain in perpetuity? I don't know if that's in the agreement now. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but I'd like to get a clear understanding of what that future looks like, because it's going to be important if we go to renegotiate before 2023, July 1. I think we're getting probably close to at some point, I know 15 years, but as Mayor said, COVID hit, and that might have shaved it down to 7. I don't know. A lot of trash was generated during COVID.
Yeah.
So I'd like to participate in some way and just kind of sit in and listen. I don't want to control nothing, but the landfill in Anderson County is something that I'm interested in learning more about.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
Next was East Wolf Valley Convenience Center update.
Everything is on track. We did have a little bit of extra work on the electric side with moving some utilities that was originally unanticipated. We're still on track. I checked in with Jeff. I also know I review the pay applications as well. The work started about November 6th, and this is a 180-day contract, so Jeff believes will be done, by May, like maybe that May 6th, I think is the far out, but we should be done before then, so. And if you've been going by, pardon?
Contract actually calls for April 28th.
Well, I think it was 180 days from the start, so substantially complete was 150 days, so. And then I guess if there are other little outlying issues like an attendant building that's not ready, but that'll probably be the last thing, so, yeah. I think they're getting ready mid-March, so any day now, we should be looking at the fencing. Trying to think what else is, the paving, I think they're waiting on weather, just when we get a good spell to be able to do that, so then they'll do the paving, get the curbing in, the fencing's gonna go up, it's looking great, it really is looking great.
I drove by there last week, dropping off trash, and went out there and looked, and they were doing some of the, looked like the utility stuff you were talking about. A couple fellows was out there working on it, so that's good news. Probably sometime in May, we'll be looking at having a complete facility and open for business, hopefully. Provided weather, of course, in the area.
Yeah, if we don't get another winter, like we did last week.
It's looking good. And we'll have recycling there, right? Just to
yeah.
remind everybody, we'll have.
Commissioner McCamey's like bird dogging this one, this is,
He's done a good job, bird dogging it, I don't have to say.
Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Wandale. I know everybody's excited about that. You know,
Yes.
when I pass by and see all that traffic backed up on Clinton Highway, I think, man, I'll be glad when we get that done.
Well, even the attendant at the current place isn't really, he doesn't, you know, I tried to reassure him that it's gonna be a nice facility. And he's like, well, I don't know, I haven't seen it yet. And I said, it'll be here, don't worry. Patience.
Yeah, people don't like change.
No.
It's
Well, I
hard.
think everybody in my district's gonna love the
Gonna like
change.
that, yeah.
Especially, there's a lot of people who surprised me when we had this COVID thing and we had to do away with recycling. And man, there's a lot of people in our community that likes recycling, and they're pretty upset about it. And so it's good to know it's gonna come back. And there's a lot of people that like to collect their papers and cardboard and metal and things like that. So that's good. Thank you.
It's hard to believe that we have.
If we could encourage recycling a little bit more, that landfill might last a little bit longer.
That's a very good point.
I go to that, when I take my garbage there, I see a lot of stuff that just goes in regular dump that should be going in recycling, cardboard and things like that. It's like, I mean, it's just that dumpster right there, why can't you just put it there? But I don't see any encouragement out there at all. There's no signs to encourage it, there's no, the person that's at the convenience center, I mean, they could say, hey, put that over there, you know, or encourage people to recycle, but I don't see any encouragement for that at all.
I think at the new facility, they're gonna be designated dumpsters for each one. I mean,
We've tried to operate on an 80 by 80 spot there. I mean, it's ridiculous to even think that we could have, you know, 2 dumpsters for garbage and 1 for recycling, plus the open top for old stuff.
It's busy.
items.
It's busy.
But on all that on an 80 by 80, which is about a third of an acre.
We'll get her.
Commissioner Anderson, did you want to speak?
Oh, it's not that important. I just remember my dad talking about when the Chestnut Ridge landfill first came in, that the projection was it would be a golf course in 1990. I didn't know what to tell him. I said, I don't know, complain to your commissioner or something.
Sounds like your dad.
Yeah.
Next, we got flag placement, Veterans Bridge update, requested by Commissioner Wandale.
I finally got the final plans on the flag project, and we had to pull out that electric because it just was gonna be too expensive and too many moving parts to put electricity to the flagpole. So we've got a solar, new version of solar, 40-foot, and I have the application for TDOT, and I'm going to take that to the city of Clinton at the end of this month for their blessing, and then we'll get that submitted.
Awesome. And just to follow up, Mayor, I may have told you this maybe 2 or 3 veterans breakfasts ago that John Reagan was there, and he said if you needed any help with TDOT, he'd run that through. I sent you an email on that. I don't know that you need that, but.
Good,
Okay.
good, perfect.
Thank you for your help. I appreciate it. It's further than it's ever been.
Fingers crossed. Pine Meadows?
Yes.
So,
Requested by Commissioner Wandale.
we have 3 of the 4 burnt trailers have been removed and the lots have been cleaned up. The 4th one is in litigation due to the owner being deceased, so Jay is handling that one. Several of the lots have been cleaned up. However, there's still more that have been cited and are in violation. 4 cases are in active litigation with Jay, and then Jay is working on 5 more with the landowner or the occupant in order to achieve compliance.
What about the study we had done with that engineering firm?
We do have that, and did I not send you a copy of that?
I think you did. I was
Okay.
just wondering if we was gonna do anything with it. I guess some of the questions I get, just like they've been all along, is, you know, the roads and
Yes.
things like that. I mean,
So-
and again, I wanna say thank you to you
Yeah.
and zoning and Jay for all that's been done to clean it up, to get these burned trailers out, and zoning has definitely stepped it up, and I appreciate it.
So one of the things we still have some to do is get together and talk about this on a larger level. There are some things that I'm aware Jay is working on that aren't to be spoken into a microphone, but so there are some things that we're working on that came out of that study and, you know, would be more of a global solution. So, the other thing is, one of the things about that study, the development predated our zoning regs and resolution. So some of the things now that we're able to do is, if there isn't a new structure that's put in within a certain time frame, there are some things that we can do now in zoning, whereas before, they can go back and do what they've always done because they were grandfathered in. But we can trigger that, the new updated requirements if they're in non-compliance, and then they don't build or replace within a certain time frame. So we did get a win out of that. Still to do is more work on just that global, how do we get these roads fixed? How do we address that? So there's more work to be done, but I wish I had time just to work on it every day, but it's like you never know what the day is, and I'm sure it's the same for Jay. But we are all talking, and also talking with the sheriff's department.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tennessee Emergency Broadband Funds, ARP, requested by Commissioner Wandale.
I think we've covered everything there, and Mayor's on top of that, and I shared all the notes that I had from talking with Taylor Beck, and I think the Mayor will take care of it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor has something she wants to share with you. Just see some good news.
Oh, well, you share it, Jay.
We got some good news just a few minutes ago. The bill allowing off-road vehicles on the road in Oliver Springs has passed the Senate, so that looks good. Next step's the House.
Good.
So really want to thank Commissioner Meade. He's been all over this and written several letters. He's got Charlie Curtis on board, and I wrote one, but he's just relentless when he gets on an issue. And he's really broken it down to the financial impact to Oliver Springs and how important it is, and shown the examples of what we did in Rocky Top and how successful that is. But Commissioner Meade's done a fantastic job. That's the first big step we've got. It got out of committee, the week before last, and now we've got Senate approval, so hopefully we'll have House approval in just a couple of days.
I spoke to John Reagan about it, and he was really appreciative of the support that he got from this body in trying to get that done. So that's one of the resolutions that did work.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, sir.
good news.
Thank you.
And that brings me up something that we was talking about earlier, is about timelines to resolutions. because a lot of times when our resolutions go out there, sometimes we don't hear anything back.
Right.
Maybe that's something we need to take up at some time, just adding timelines to resolutions.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's an excellent idea.
So, I mean, if you wanna make a motion for that, or if you wanna put it on the agenda.
Well, I mean, I think it'd be hard, I mean, we could do it, but I guess from my perspective, there may be certain resolutions that, to the mayor's point earlier, you can't really put a timeline on some things, because, we're not gonna make the federal government make a decision in 30 days or 60 days, but,
Mhm.
and I think the same goes with our legislative folks. I mean, we can't, I'd love to have an answer on the private act we passed on the voting for commission and, school board members to stay nonpartisan, but, it just ain't gonna see any action, and it'll get the due courtesy, process, and by the time elections are over, it might get taken up. But, no, I don't, I think for me, what I'll do is when I make a motion, if I need a date, I'm gonna put it on the motion, is what I'll
Okay.
do, instead of making it a rule or something.
Right, I understand.
I appreciate you bringing it up.
I think we've got a new person that from the News Sentinel, is that correct?
Yes,
Would you like to come up and introduce yourself and?
sure.
Man, what a change from Bob Fowler.
Yeah,
That's a
really.
blast from the past.
My name's Anella. I'm the investigative reporter at the News Sentinel. Just trying to get to know as many people as possible in this community. I know y'all have a lot going on here. So, I'm trying to sit down with as many individual commissioners and anybody that wants to speak to me. So genuinely, if you'd like to talk, I have a card, so I can pass it out.
Yeah, if you want to pass some cards out, that'd be good.
Absolutely. Go ahead and get those out.
It's all about transparency.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. If y'all have any questions at all, please feel free to ask.
All right, thank you. Have we got any new business come before the committee?
I just want to make a comment. We had the Veterans Breakfast Saturday, believe it or not, with all the snow, and Mayor and her husband Lee and Victoria Boland was a sponsor, and I don't know, we probably had 20 or 30 there, but it was good to have, recognized the 94-year-old, sing birthday to him and stuff, but I appreciate the mayor doing that. And what I said there, and I'd like to say here, is one, Steve Mead also does a great job with the county, Tennessee County Commissioners Association. He's the chairman of the Veterans Committee for across the state. And what I wanted to share with the mayor, and I want to share with all of you, is that the county commissioners across the state of Tennessee and mayors have asked and inquired about Anderson County and our veteran service officer. They're very intrigued with how we did it, and how, Leon is known throughout the state, and so is Anderson County. The Veterans Breakfast is picked up across the state, all because of Anderson County. Kind of like to your point of the roads. One thing I heard a lot of the commissioners say at this last meeting is, well, Anderson County was the one that started the ATVs on roads, hadn't been done before in the state of Tennessee. So a lot of good things going on in Anderson County. I just wanted to share that with you, and I appreciate everybody. Sometimes we don't think we make a difference, but when you're at the state and you hear all the other counties kind of asking questions, comparing notes, it's really encouraging. So appreciate everything that everybody does, and mayor and all that kind of good stuff. Just want to share that.
Oh, we've got a great committee, mayor, law director, and we are many times the beacon in the state. That's
I
correct.
agree.
One of the other things we talked about earlier in the purchasing committee was about how much that the cost of diesel fuel and things have escalated. And we talked some about trying to get some extra funding for the volunteer fire departments. Because, as they struggle now, with this cost of diesel fuel, it's just, it'll be triple before you know it.
Yes.
So that's something that we're gonna, look at with the mayor and Robbie and the budget committee, so.
I happened to run into the chief. He was out cutting trees in the district, and I know this goes across our county again, all the volunteer fire departments and even the municipalities, helping the highway department. Appreciate all they did, but cutting the trees, clearing the roadways, But talking to the chief, he's taking those precautions of not traveling, trying to reserve the fuel, but this would be great news, and if it could happen, I think everybody would be appreciative, yes.
Yeah, okay. Any old business? Chairman Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say real quick, Arcadian Springs, the entrance looks great, and I appreciate Gary Long and the road department for what they did. They're doing a lot of work up in Andersonville. A lot of people are happy with the roads that are getting paved, and I appreciate the mayor and Jay working on Arcadian Springs. There's a lot of happy people right now, and I know it took several years in everybody's work, so thanks.
12 years, I
Yeah.
don't know why.
Yeah.
Anything else come before the committee?
I just wanted to throw a quick verbal note out there. People are complaining again, as usual, because we've had waterfall from the sky, therefore there are potholes. If they think they've got it bad in Anderson County, I suggest they go to Nashville, where you may lose a wheel. It's really bad out there. So I think Gary's doing a marvelous job, especially with the price of fuel going up and the cost for tar and asphalt. It's I-40, once you get past the Cumberland Plateau and you get closer towards Nashville, just start praying, because it's a mess. It was a mess out there. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of toss that out there. It's not as bad as what people perceive it to be here.
Thank you. See nothing else come forward to committee?